Hi Express 4, how are you? I'm very good here in Guarani. Hope you are okay too. So let's start our week number 5, our extra activities. On pages 1 and 2 you have reading again. Please read the sentences and then read the text and say if they are true or false. This is the reading for today, for this week, sorry. Then you have a writing. For this writing, you have to write some comparative sentences. Do first use of English because I'm going to explain you what is the comparative and how is the comparative in English. So first you practice this in use of English and then you write the comparative sentences from the writing on page number 3. Okay, let's go for use of English. So the use of English this week is about comparatives. How do you compare two things? So let's think about a sentence. Brazil is hotter than Alaska, for example. So I have the comparative here. What is the adjective? It's hot. So I say Brazil is hotter than Alaska. Pay attention. I have the subject, then I have the verb to be, is, and then I have the adjective with er, and finally I have then and the other comparative one, the other subject. So Brazil is hotter than Alaska. Okay? Hot is a small adjective. For small adjectives, I usually add er in the end. But what happens with some adjectives like dry, for example? I say Brasília is drier than Juiz de Fora because it rains just a little bit. So dry is a word, an adjective ending in y. So what do I have to do? I cross y and I add ier, drier. Okay? So you have a list of adjectives in your material, so you can take a look in those details, okay? So usually small adjective er in the end with these small differences. So let's do the activities. Remember, verb to be, comparative with er, a short adjective, and then you have then and the other thing you are comparing. Let's think about some adjectives, short ones. Tall, small, big, simple. Simple is can be a short or a big one. You're going to see in a moment. But think, write some examples of small adjectives in your material. Now you're going to practice, okay? You have some paragraphs there and you have to compare them using one of the adjectives you have in the box. Then you have to choose the correct words in italics. And number 2, you don't have to listen to check. You have to check in the answer key in the end of the material, okay? There is no listening for checking this time. Number 3, you have to write those sentences so they are true using the comparatives. Look at the example. It's warmer in London than Madrid. It's colder in London than Madrid. So you have to correct the sentence using the comparative. Then we have comparatives without them. Example. English is difficult, but Japanese is more difficult. Okay? Difficult is a big adjective, so I don't say difficulter, okay? I'm sorry about the noise. There is something happening here in front of my house. So it is difficult. Dogs barking, and I'm sorry for this, guys, but it's impossible. So let's continue here. More difficult. Japanese is more difficult than English, but I can say English is difficult, but Japanese is more difficult, okay? So I can use the comparative without then. That's it. This is the idea. But teacher, you said more difficult. When do I use more and when do I add ed in the end of the word? If it is a big adjective, I use more. So, English is more interesting than Japanese. Gisele Bündchen is more beautiful than my neighbor, okay? Another example of the comparative is less. Less is the opposite of more. So if I say English is more interesting than Japanese, I can say Japanese is less interesting than English. Got it? Okay? And so we have big adjectives, small adjectives, and we have the irregular ones. So when I want to compare using good, I say better. So English is better than Japanese. When I use bad, when I want to compare with bad, I say, I don't know, Japanese is worse than English, okay? And there is another one which is also irregular, which is far. Far, you have two options. You have further or farther, okay? So these are the three irregular adjectives. Let's move on to the next page. You have more comparatives with big adjectives and irregular adjectives. Number one, you have to complete with the words in the box. Number two, you have to circle the correct ones. And number three, you have to correct the sentences. What is incorrect, and you have to correct it, okay? And then you return to the writing page. You have to compare, okay? Statistics in 2 cities in the state of New York, in the United States, to have some data. So you have to compare. And finally, we are in listening and speaking. The first activity, you don't have to listen and you don't have to speak anything. You just complete with the comparative. So let's go for number 2. Bangkok's more interesting than, okay? And you have to fill in the gaps, okay? Then, and let's see, you have to listen to the audio and you have to finish completing, okay, letter B, the comparison, and you have to say who says that sentence. Is it Luke or is it Monica? So who says number 1? Who says sentence number 2? So my advice, put L or M in front of the sentence, okay? Just this. You have to recognize who says which sentence. And then you listen again and check your answers. For speaking, my suggestion for you is compare 2 people in your family. So you can compare your mother and your father. Example, my father is taller than my mother, but my mother is thinner than my father. Okay, so you compare, use some people from your family to compare. Use like 5 sentences, that's okay. All right, thank you so much. If you have any problems doing the activities, you can talk to me on Mondays or Thursdays from 3 to 6 p.m. or Saturdays from 10 to 11 a.m. Okay, hope you are okay. See you soon. Bye bye.